Okay, so as mentioned, so my name is Maoli Vizcaino. I am a first year PhD student at Yale, and my presentation today is on how we study the ocean's past. So a little intro outline. I'm gonna first talk about myself, so y'all can get to know me a little bit. Then I'm gonna go into the ocean and Earth's past and why we might study this. The different instruments we use to do our research. I'll go into the International Ocean Drilling Project, which is super cool. And then Foraminifera, which is my study organism. And then I'll go a bit more into my research, and then we'll break out into the activity. So first, that's me, of course. I'm from Texas. I grew up there. And growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of went to college. And I ended up majoring in geosciences. And so I got my undergraduate degree at Williams in Massachusetts. And then after I graduated, I still didn't know what to do. Oh, yay, yeah, go Fort Worth. I don't know if you're from Fort Worth, but I still didn't know what to do. So I went and I applied to a master's program. And so there I went to University of Delaware, and there I got a master's in oceanography. And so after UD, I still didn't really know what to do. I know I liked doing research and stuff. So it was, I did some job applications and ended up getting a research assistant position at Stanford in geochemistry, actually, which was different from what I was doing, but I like learning. And again, I'm not sure. And then I ended up here at Yale doing a PhD in oceanography. I went back to oceanography after doing some chemistry. And I'm here now. I like what I do, but I still don't know what I'm gonna do. And y'all, I'm almost 30. So, sometimes you know your whole life what you wanna do, and that's super great. And sometimes you don't. And, I just wanted to let you know that it's fine. And you can still end up doing a lot of things that are interesting to you along the way. But yeah, so next, we're going into the science. So the ocean and Earth's past. I have a couple questions for y'all. And that is, what kinds of things do you think we can learn about Earth history from the ocean? And then, why do we study the ocean? Why should we study the ocean? So any responses you have? There's a whole bunch of stuff. Ooh, yes, amazing statistic there. You're beating me to the punch, Luke. So, yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. Hello. Yeah, so sediment layers on the ocean floor and icebergs and things, 100%. Wow, yeah, I know y'all got this. Okay. Feel free. We know more about space in the ocean. There's a lot of, we do know a lot about space, considering the fact that the ocean is closer, but good news is there's still a lot to learn about space too. So if y'all are interested in space science, you could hop in there. History of Earth, 100%. There is much to discover. Movement of plate tectonics. Oh, y'all are amazing. Okay, well, I'm gonna move on. So yeah, as mentioned, we can learn about Earth's past, we can learn about climate change, temperatures all across Earth history, plate tectonics, yep, ocean chemistry, we can learn about oxygen levels through time, yep, we learned about how the poles change direction. Yeah, y'all are killing it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, technology for me. And yeah, so the statistic, yes, the Earth's surface is mostly ocean. So as you can see here, this photo is really cool. This is literally just the Pacific Ocean. So here's the US, like all of that. And I really like this picture because I think it's like a perspective of the ocean that we don't usually see, of the Earth that we don't usually see. But yeah, so how do we do it? We use really expensive equipment to go out and study the ocean. And of course, really cool scientists. Up here, is a glider. And this is actually a friend of mine from graduate school with a glider from University of Delaware. So she did her PhD research using gliders in Antarctica. And this is a buoy, which works just like a regular buoy. And then this is a rosette. So here's my really beautiful graphic of the ocean. So the way that the buoys work is, of course, they float on the ocean surface, and they can collect things, information like sea surface temperature, salinity. They can track things in like the atmosphere, ocean, like area, like connection there. And so you can get data from this. They'll send that to satellites. So that's like more surface ocean information. The rosette, which I mentioned earlier, those are cool. And this is how we can get information about deep water. So my super awesome boat I made, they'll take the rosette and they'll not launch it. They'll, use it like a kind of like a fishing line, it'll go down into the water. Ooh, are other people having issue hearing me? Okay. So the rosettes will go into the water, and each of these little things is a bottle. And so they will open, the rosette will go down into the water column, and the bottle will open automatically and then close to keep that water in the bottle, so that whenever the rosette comes back up on the boat, we can study what the ocean water is like deep, without it getting contaminated by bringing water all the way up from the deep to the boat. So that's really cool. And so then the gliders, these, as I mentioned earlier, also really expensive, really amazing. So these can cover more like a distance. So, the buoys float there, the rosettes, they can go down in one area and then come back up, and we'll use that. The gliders will collect information, like the same sort of information, like chemistry, oxygen levels, temperature levels, and they will use water pressure to go up and down through the water, just around wherever you launch them. And then, they do look like missiles, but they're painted really fun colors so that if you happen to see one, you don't get scared. Although the ocean is very large, and they launch them out in deep waters and stuff. So they don't really get disturbed. But yeah, so these are really cool. And so that's how we can get information for more of an area. And they'll go up, and whenever they reach the surface, they can shoot information up into satellites. And then that's how scientists can get that information. Oh yeah, okay, so the water pressure. So it's kind of like if you have, gosh, what are those things called? Like a syringe, for example. It's like, there's a mechanism inside that will suck water into the glider to make it heavier, right? And so then it'll go deep down, and then it'll automatically push water out to make it lighter, and then it'll come back up. So it's kind of like that. And after they've been out for a couple weeks or however long you decide to, no sweat. And after you decide you want them back, they'll take a boat, and they have GPS on them, of course. And then they pick them up and then launch them again later. Yeah, I would say it's kind of like a hydraulic thing. Don't super quote me though. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not totally sure, but hydraulic seems right. But okay. So what about the past then? Those things I just mentioned is for modern temperatures, modern waters, stuff like that. So in the past, and we touched on this earlier when I asked the question. So I'm going to walk you through a little scenario. Okay, imagine you're in New Haven and it snows. I know. What a surprise, snowing. No. So it snows, and there's you're walking by, and there's a huge pile of snow on the ground. You're like, okay, great. While you're in school, throughout the week, you keep walking past the snow pile, and you'll see things get in it. It'll get a little smaller as it melts a bit. There'll be lots of dirt, maybe someone's throwing a little trash on it or something, right? But then let's say a week later, it snows again. And so snow piles up on that pile that was already there, right? And so the same sort of thing happens over the week, and there's all this stuff in this layer, but then it snows again. And there's fresh snow up until after another week, a whole week's worth of things happen, right? So if you were to cut through that snow pile, yes, exactly like Earth's layers, you'll be able to see those different layers on how things are happening. And so that same principle applies in the ocean as well. Even though, it happens a lot, a lot differently because things have to fall through the water column all the way to the ocean floor, it's still the same process. So if we want to get down here to find out what happened the first week of snow, if we want to find out what happened in deeper sediments in the ocean, which translates to, of course, older time periods, what kind of instruments do we think that we would use as scientists to get to these deep sediments? A drill, literally exactly correct. We use drills and it's super fun. So boats, well, I said boats, but we all know I mean the drills on the boats. But these are two drilling boats. So up here is Chikyu. This is a Japanese drilling boat. And then this is the Joides Resolution, which is the American boat. And both of these boats are really beautiful and awesome. And they are part of the International Ocean Drilling Project, which is shortened to IODP. So I might say that. So I'm going to the Joides since it's the American boat. This here is a beautiful picture of the Joides in the South China Sea. So this boat is a research vessel. It drills into the ocean floor to collect and study core samples. It's pretty big. It can hold a lot of people because, it's really expensive to run this boat. So they try to get as much science in as possible. So it has to be big. So it'll have around 65 crew members who keep the drills running, the boat running, doing electrical, catering, people have to cook and clean, etc. And then there's going to be around 60 scientists on board as well, all sorts of scientists and technicians. There will be engineers. There's someone whose job it is to document what happens on the boat as outreach, people to observe what's going on, all that sort of thing. Geochemists, microbiologists, micropaleontologists. It's really cool. So the boat itself is 143 meters long, which I had to look this up. It is longer than a football field, which is in feet. I think it's like 300 something feet or something. But yeah, expeditions on the boat can last from 1 to 3 months. So the scientists who are on board are like really into it, like super awesome, intense. Like someone is always working at all times. Like, of course, individual people don't work for 24 hours because you need to sleep, but people typically be on like 12-hour shifts. So it will be day shift and night shift. And so at all times people are doing, collecting, documenting the cores that they pick up. And I'll go a little more into that in a second. But yeah, the boat is really intense and it's really, what's the word? It's really competitive. So scientists will apply. I actually have 2 friends on the boat right now because it's out, but I'll also go into that. It's just super cool. So here is a map that I took from the Joides website, showing places that both boats have been to drill. So they really want to go out and get information from as many like different parts of the ocean floor as possible, right? So I mean, they've been lots of places. Right now they're over here in the South Atlantic. And each of these like big dots like represents like several holes or like a small, like a track of holes. And so that's why it's like, international, it's an international effort because the sort of information is important for learning about Earth's past, especially as climate change is happening. Certain years where, yep. And it's just like every year there's a call for proposals on where scientists think the boat should go next. And so it is really collaborative and like lots of people work really hard to make this happen. So a little more, down in yellow in Antarctica. How do I go back? Oh, what is MSB? I don't really, excellent question. I'm not sure. But this is from the Joides website and I have the link up at the end so y'all can write it down to go look at all sorts of cool stuff later. So a little more details about how the drilling works. So here's a picture, not to scale, but see, you'll have the boat obviously floating on the water. And then this part is the drilling mechanism on the boat called the derrick. It's a crane looking thing sticking up off the boat. So what they'll do is they will just like run pipe, like just all the way down through miles of seawater to the ocean floor. And there, the drill will go into the sediment and eventually it'll go into rock. And it's an intense process. But so here is another sideways view. And so what will happen is when the sediments come back up, yeah, it's very complicated. They have to keep everything in order too, because of course, like the order of where the different sections of the core is, like that affects like when you know something happened, right? Like this stuff is older than this stuff. So they will section and number everything. And then exactly on the boat, they will do all of these different observations and stuff and write about it there on the boat, so that in the moment you get all the information and nothing gets mixed up in transit to like somewhere on land. So does each company only have one boat? It's not really a company, it's more like a collaborative scientific effort. There are two like main specifically for this drilling boats, the Joides and the Chikyu. And then there will sometimes be boats that are like chartered for research drilling purposes, but these are the two boats that are specifically equipped for this sort of scientific ocean drilling. So here's some pictures. So this picture is actually from the Joides Twitter. They've been posting a lot because they just got a core on board of their current trip that they're all on right now. So this is from literally just last week. Some really cool scientists looking at a drill core that is finally on the boat. And so this is from the website. So you'll see here, this is essentially what it is, just a bunch of scientists looking at it. They'll mark all, like everything they know about this. They will talk about the color of the sediments. They will talk about how coarse it is, like how thick each layer is, any microfossils they find, all sorts of stuff. And up here I have pictures of the drill bits so that, yeah, and you can't really see the scale like here, but with these people, you see that it's not that, the cores themselves are not that thick. But yeah, so these are the drill bits that are at the ends that go down, down, deep, deep down. And then this is a core repository. So after we get all this information and the boat comes back, the cores go to what it like is basically like a giant library. So each of these is a core from a drilling expedition. And this is specifically in a College Station at Texas A&M. And yeah, and so what scientists will do is if there's a study, that if there's an area of the ocean that I want to study, I can reach out to the scientists at the IODP repository in, College Station and ask for sediments from a core, and someone will come out and get that and send it to me. And I actually have some in the lab right now. And yeah, it's like super cool because they want people to use it. They want people to like learn about the sediments and what they can tell us and stuff. So it's really cool. So I mentioned before that, I have a study organism. It's called Foraminifera. So these are marine microplanktons. And, this is a picture of one, of course. So they are super cool. These are I'm like calling everything cool, but it's because it is. But so they're single-celled plankton. They make very tiny little carbonate shells. So this is a shell and the organism is like protected on the inside. And then these are called, they're called rhizarians. So it's like rhizopodia, I believe. But it's really cool. So these guys are really vicious predators. So they will use these kind of like a spider's web, but it's, attached to them. And they will, swim around. They don't swim. That's not the technical word. So they will be floating around in the water and they will catch, little organisms in these filaments and just like, zoop, zoop, zoop them in here. And then in here is the opening where it just like goes in and it like consumes it. So they're, small but deadly and super cool. And I have a video of Yeah, and bear with me as I, my computer plays this probably with an ad. Oh my hell.
Bras fit small-chested women like this.
So sorry. Yay, okay.
I want you to get drawn down.
So this is.
So what do we see here, Howie? Okay, so we've just
this is the forum
universe in Artemia, and it bumped into the spines, and right now it's caught on.
And these are the little rhizopodias, and then this is a Artemia, which is a little krill thing. And it's just gonna, it can't swim away, the forum has it, and it's gonna eventually get sucked in and just like consumed. So, what would I classify what as? The Foraminifera. So the Foraminifera are going to be, they are like, I think protists. I think that's a pretty safe place to put them. They are eukaryotes, so they're not eukaryotes. That's a lie. Okay, I'm so sorry. Anyway, so here's some pictures of more of them. This is from Taki et al. Paper. But so this is just an example of different species. So the reason why these are cool and you can like learn things about the ocean from them is, okay, so first of all, they're all over the place, like they're plankton, they're small. So you can find them all over the ocean and they make these shells. And so what happens is as they make the shells, they make them in the water column, right? And so that can like tell you about the water conditions if you do like chemical analyses on them, or sometimes things even as simple as the way that they're shaped can tell you as well. So all these different kinds of all these different like different species of forams you see here, like these two are like kind of funny looking. These are actually, these are species that prefer lower oxygen environments. So even something as simple as looking at a sediment layer and seeing one that looks like this, I can start thinking about that maybe when this foram died and in this layer of sediment, the water there was not as oxygenated as another time when, for example, these ones might be there. So it's really cool, basically. Again, that's like mostly what I have to say about everything. But yeah, and they're really diverse too. And yeah, and they're, I mean, also very beautiful. So back to my super awesome drawing. So yeah, so that's like, using all of that, we can learn about, you know, these sediments down here and thus also the Earth's past. And then this really cool graphic from our video from my lab mate. And so this kind of shows more what I'm saying just in like one cute video. So this is the water, this represents the water, obviously this is dirt, and these are cute little forams. So what you'll have is forams making shells in the blue water, so they're blue. Forams making shells in the green, and I mean, that's green, but it's not, in the red. And so these forams are red now, and then back to blue. And like, so the different colors of water is just basically a stand-in for different ocean conditions, right? So then whenever I take out this core, I see, you know, the green and the blue and the green and the red and the blue, and it tells a story about like change in the ocean. So specifically for me now, this is a picture of me. But so what'll happen is in the sediments that I ask for the core repository for, I will get them. I'll do a bunch of processing to basically like sieve out the different, a size of grain. And those will mostly be these fossils. So here's some of them in a, in just like a, you know, a little holder in the slide. That's what this is here. And this is what they look like under the microscope. So you'll see that these are forams, and then there's going to be other like little stuff there too, but you know, you can tell which ones are the forams. And so what I'll do is I'll pick the species that I'm looking for, or the different, like whatever it is that I'm looking for, and I'll put them into like little different slides. And so from here, I will either do chemical analyses, I will count them, I do a lot of counting. Yeah, and then yeah, obviously this is a video of me in action. And what's really cool is that like everyone else uses like really expensive equipment, but I actually use a paintbrush. So this is like a really thin paintbrush, and so you'll just like take the paintbrush and dip it in water, And then the water, like you can like touch the, like use the very tip of it to like touch one to pick it up and put it in like here. And that won't like, it acts like glue, like it was, but it won't ruin like the chemical makeup of the thing. So that I can still do like science without contaminating it. And so essentially what I'm doing is looking at oxygen levels over time. And so I will do things like use like the different shapes or different species to tell me what's going on in a core. And yeah, that's it pretty much. I have, another picture of the boat here in the beautiful South China Sea. And then this is the website I mentioned that if you're interested in learning more about the boats, they have lots of like videos and like little activities and stuff on here. It's droidesresolution.org. And you can follow the current expedition that's happening right now as well.
All right, I think we are all back from the breakout rooms. So now is everyone's favorite time, and we can ask our wonderful speaker some questions that you guys had over the talk. And you were really great and were answering questions throughout the talk. But if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to them as we go. But I guess I'll start with the question that was kind of coming up in our breakout room, or really not really a question, but more of an observation. But it was really cool when we were looking at the forum to see like the low oxygen ones were kind of like in between two periods where there was like, I guess, more normal oxygen levels. So, when we were guessing, we were thinking, oh, it's probably just the oldest. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How there was kind of like a micro period of low oxygen?
Yeah. It's funny because the sorts of things that we get from the sediment can be, short for geologic time, but not necessarily for us. So if I were to see something like that, we're in between, two layers, that could be representative of thousands of years. So it's funny because that is like really micro, and we call that high resolution. So like and that happens a lot, it's like if you're studying in a specific area too, for example. So it's like I'm actually not looking at every single layer. I'm looking at like every third sample in my box of samples, which is like represents like, 3 to 5 centimeters based on how thick each layer is. And so if I wanted to go in and like learn more specifics about like a period of time, then I would go and test all that. But you can imagine it's like a lot of counting of a lot of very small grains. So, we try to be efficient. So it's like, I'll look at different points. And then if I see something that looks cool, like even within like the, every third sample, I see like high, then low, then high, then I'll go in and fill that in to like see, is it like high, and then low, or is it high, low, high, that sort of thing. So I don't know if I totally answered, but yeah.
I think we got the gist. It takes a lot of trial and error and like, really like graphing the whole period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Another question we just got about the layers is approximately how old are the shell layers?
So it really depends. It's hard. Forums are, they're pretty, we know a lot and also not very much about them. We kind of classify them based off size. So a small one will be younger and a bigger one will be older. So they build chambers as they get bigger. And so it just like spirals around and around and around, and then they just like end up bigger. Or the shell layers. Yeah. So I guess I
guess like really... the earliest layer we were looking at, like how many years ago was that?
Oh, the ones from the activity. Sorry, I thought you meant in the actual forum.
No, that's okay.
Okay, yeah. So the layers. So those ones in the activity were actually all pictures of like live forums. And so it was more like a representative than like actual ones that you would actually find in a sediment. But the ones that I work with right now, they are from my core is from 12,000 years ago to 660,000 years. So I'm looking at basically around 600,000 years of shells.
That's a huge time span.
Yeah.
That's a huge time span. And, I think, you mentioned that you thought you were getting old at 30. When you think 600,000, that really puts it in perspective.
Really puts it in
You really
perspective.
have a lot more time.
Yeah. No. I don't think that it's not really about it.
No.
30 is still fine and awesome. Like, I'm technically 26, but it's like, once you get, you start thinking about it. That is a lot of years. Yeah. And I've studied ones that are even older. Like, I actually study pretty young stuff compared to a lot of people in my cohort. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's really cool. And then I guess the last question we have is, I guess, when you're studying these things, how are the videos actually recorded?
Yeah. So so if you have live ones in the lab, you can do as as easy as just like like taking your phone camera and just like holding it really close to the eye hole, or like if you do want like a video to like showcase at a conference or something, like they will be in like little tanks and they'll be just regular camera setups, so long as the zoom is good enough to where you can like get it, like zoom in to like see it. So they probably just had like a really good zoomy camera. But we have forums in the lab right now. You can literally like scoop mud from like the shallow end of the Long Island Sound, and if you have your own at home, like looking in the mud, if you know what to look for, it's going to look like a tiny shell, and that's probably a foram.
Wow, so you heard that, everyone. If you have a phone camera that's good enough, or if you know someone with a phone camera that's good enough, you can also be a micropaleontologist.
Yeah.
So that is really, really encouraging. So again, thank you again so much for your talk. I think you've inspired all of us to, go out there and see what we can learn in the nature around us. And I will pass it over to another volunteer to finish closing up the talk. But again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.